Welcome. How am I going to start this? Welcome. That's 3 welcomes. That's how you know it's Clever Orbit, our favorite sci-fi, but mostly Star Trek podcast. And in a wildly bold move for this podcast, we are discussing Star Wars, The Force Awakens. That's a lot of background noise. Could stop with that.
Clickety-click.
It was the 7th Star Wars film released in December of 2015, starring Daisy Ridley and some other people who I don't remember that well. Adam Driver, I think he was in it too.
John Boyega.
Yeah, John Boyega. Thank you. And Harrison Ford.
Oscar Isaac.
Marka.
Mark Hamill.
Very briefly.
Very briefly. I don't think he didn't even have a line.
No, they just talk about him for the whole film. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a great place to start, except for the fact that we've got Tyler on, Richard on, and our special guest star, Louis Guertin. His middle name is Louis, so I'm just going to call him Louis, which will be utterly confusing.
All right, if you wish.
Maybe I won't. Actually, I'm going to call you Sven, because I haven't done that since 2009.
All right.
So, initial thoughts about The Force Awakens, guys. Richard, I think you have a lot of notes. Let's start with you.
I liked it. I think it really does what's important for Star Wars, which is to create a sense of adventure and fun, and also this sort of sense that there's an interesting universe out there. I really feel like that's the core aspect of Star Wars. It's got its flaws, but it ticks those boxes, and that makes me very happy. So I like it. How about you all?
I would concur with that assessment, actually. I think, if you view it looking for a lot of interesting intellectual, philosophical depth, there's a certain level of that to be found, a certain measure of it. It definitely doesn't deal with science in the same way that Star Trek does. I mean, it's more about the fiction and the fantasy. Yeah.
And that's fine.
But it repays repeated viewings because of the beats it hits, the universal appeal, the fun, the characters, the humor, those moments that you just want to see over and over again, like that part where Adam Driver hits the side of his body because he's in pain. That moment just really gets me excited. No, it really doesn't.
Do you think he's doing that in order to make the pain more intense, to make himself more powerful with the dark side?
Maybe.
That's what I always thought.
That's kind of how I interpreted it. Yeah.
That's certainly the coolest way to interpret it.
Huh.
Well, because that's a fundamental aspect of the dark side, right? You have Yoda's classic speech in the prequels about, fear leading to anger, anger leading to hate, hate leading to suffering, like part of like the, and as well as when in Return of the Jedi, the Emperor tried to seduce Luke into giving in to his hate. And you can tell when he goes like nuts on Darth Vader with the lightsaber that, he's experiencing a lot of pain and suffering and, emotion there. So I think it's kind of in the same vein.
This fits. I would contend based on my, the models of emotions that I work with, just to apply them to this, because there's a lot that I can see as a coach here in Star Wars. The experience of hate or anger and fear, those all feel bad. Those are all emotions that we don't like feeling. They are unpleasant physical sensations in our body. So really, it's just a spectrum from there to actual physical pain in your body caused by an injury or something else. So the idea that whole set of unpleasant sensations can be harnessed or can generate some sort of energy or empowerment, as weird as that may seem for somebody, to be empowered by pain. It seems to be where the dark side is coming from, which is a really cool, interesting new gloss to have on them, because then the Jedi are, either about the absence. I don't think there is much about pleasure, though it would be really interesting to see somebody come at the Force, like the Gray Jedi maybe, come at the Force from the angle of pain and pleasure can be used, and we don't have to have equanimity. Like in the Code of the Jedi, I don't know where this comes from exactly, but they talk about there is only peace, right? And so it seems like the the Jedi on the light side of the Force, they are trying to harness the Force, but without becoming attached and without being driven by either the pleasure or the pain.
I think
serenity
is a great word for it. It's a very almost Buddhist approach.
Exactly. They're all about mindfulness.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Republic appears to have been a Jedi theocracy, although it's all about mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And midichlorians.
Which is a pretty cool idea.
Mostly mindfulness. Well, here it is. Through passion, I gain focus. Through knowledge, I gain power. Through serenity, I gain strength. Through victory, I gain harmony. There is only the Force. Yeah, this is one of those articulations. Excuse me. This is a better one. This is the one that I remember. There is no emotion. There is peace. And this is more Buddhist. I just called up the Jedi Code on Google because I remember there was like a little short summary of the Jedi Code and then the Sith Code. The Sith Code is very different. But
the first one actually. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Let me just finish it real quick. There is no emotion.
Sure.
There is no ignorance. There is knowledge. There is no passion. There is serenity. There is no chaos. There is harmony. There is no death. There is the Force. Then it's got the translation from into Arabesh, which I'm not sure if you guys know. That's the Star Wars language that you see on all their fighters and stuff next to it. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to comment that particularly the first selection that you just read. I'm going to revise my answer and say actually less Buddhist and more Taoist, actually, where the Force is the Tao in terms of achieving total balance, and that there's a correct flow to that one connects to and tries to follow the way,
Yeah, it seems more of an active participation in a flow rather than a yielding or a resignation. So, yeah, it's actually so what's most interesting about this new trilogy of films is how the Force gets articulated and what's going on with the Force. And of course, the title being that the Force Awakens. I still remember for most of late 2015, people were like, "So the Force has been asleep? Did somebody pour cold water on the Force? I mean,
Well, yeah. I mean, it turns out they had.
The Force sleep through its alarm. I mean, but of course, in the movie, you do get, and they're both when Snoke is talking, the answers to the question of what does it mean that the Force is awakening and who is the last Jedi. You find out, it is. There has been an awakening. Have you felt it? And then they go on to talk about Daisy Ridley's character Rey and bring her to me, and then she escapes. And anyway, it seems like the Force has awakened in Rey, and she is maybe not the embodiment of the Force itself awakening, but the Force itself is moving through her. It's gaining new power. And then the Last Jedi is of course Luke.
Well, I do think that it's significant. There's a significant parallel drawn between Anakin and Rey because they were both virgin births. So it's like the Force literally incarnated them in a human womb.
Was Rey a virgin?
No. I don't think we have any textual evidence for the fact that she was born without parents.
No. Not born without parents, but born without a father.
I don't remember that.
Okay, maybe not. All right. Okay, I could be totally wrong then.
He just got abandoned. She's just an orphan.
It was in the special features.
It was in the updated edition. Has George Lucas already gotten his hands on this one? He didn't even make the film.
Okay, well that's how my brain chose to remember it.
I can imagine being a special edition of this film, and it's and then every other scene just has Gungans or battle droids. That's the whole.
That's what I.
Well,
I guess
part of the reason that I misremembered it that way is that I think that the idea behind the rise of the Empire and whatnot was that Anakin brought the Force out of balance, although it was already coming, right? Because the Jedi were growing weaker over time, which was a secret that the Jedi Council kept to themselves. But that basically Anakin messed up everything. Oh, that's directly from Episode 1. That is directly from the prequels. There's a conversation that the Jedi Council has that where they discuss like their powers, the powers of the Jedi in general diminishing, and they don't know why. And skipping forward, like you kind of get the impression, when Obi-Wan tells him in Episode 3 that like you were the chosen one, you were supposed to bring balance to the Force, not destroy it. You kind of get the impression that
actually not leave it in darkness.
Sure. Yeah, so you kind of get the impression that the Jedi Council knew that the light side of the Force was weakening, and that Anakin might be someone to bring that balance to the Force, and instead it went the other direction and led to several generations of imbalance, to where even Luke Skywalker didn't complete his training with Yoda. In Empire Strikes Back, he left early, and so he was, I think, was not fully balanced or fully trained, in the traditional sense, when a Padawan would be like a little child, at the beginning of their training. So I think that the idea is that Rey is like potentially a new instantiation of of the Force, is very strong with the Force, to try to bring back the balance that Anakin should have. That's how I interpret it. I don't know.
That's very
interesting. I always thought it was a trick where like they thought Anakin was going to bring balance to the Force, and eventually he did by killing the Emperor. And so the whole irony was that they thought he was going to bring the Force into balance, and then he didn't. But then in the end, he actually did.
I never considered that before, but I see that absolutely. Well, plus he also had Luke.
Yep.
And Leia.
Well, the Force was imbalanced because of Emperor Palpatine Darth Sidious at that point. And so the imbalance, could have, at least on that reading, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the whole idea of balance in the Force, I think, is, I don't know if they really thought it through very carefully, because it seems like that would mean that the dark side and light side are something like equally powerful, right? But the Jedi have had a monopoly on power for 1,000 years, and they didn't seem to think that was a problem or imbalanced or anything.
That's very true. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe part of the... Go ahead.
It's only an imbalance because of their power, is the implication.
Yeah, because the light side is becoming lesser.
The balance they want is 100% for them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that in like Star Wars lore, there are always Sith Lords. Generally two. There are exactly two, and like the apprentice usually kills the master. Whoever is the most powerful, is the guy. But there's never more than two, but there are always two. But I don't know. I don't know if that's canon, but I kind of always got that impression.
Yeah, Force Awakens kind of came with a general wiping out of previous canon.
Yeah. It's interesting because they basically did the same thing that Star Trek did, where except they left everything intact beforehand. Like there was everything chronologically before the end of Return of the Jedi, like all the prequels, etc. Like those continue to exist, but everything after Return of the Jedi, which was pretty much everything that's been written over the past 25 years.
All the books.
All the books. It's been 30 years, 80 to 90, 90 to 0 to 15. So like, anyway, there was a lot.
Although I will say, they borrowed. I did see that they borrowed some thematic elements. For instance, Han and Leia having
married. Yeah.
Well, in terms of Han and Leia's children.
Child.
Yes. Although in the books they had twins, so it was like, and Luke started a new Jedi Academy, and they were the first recruits. So Luke was trying to regenerate the original order, but there was also, the remnant of the Empire that was still around, and that did try to like build a second Death Star, third Death Star, but a different thing. So it's like this. It's like thematically kind of a very similar idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great writing from that period too. Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. You also get the comic books Dark Empire 2, where Luke discovers a clone of Emperor Palpatine. It's a lot of cool stuff. Anyway, we're going a little afield. To bring it back to this movie, I give it about an A-, and that's cancel that. That was Richard's. I give it a B- because they could have stretched a bit more. Like they could have made it even more interesting. They did a lot that followed I mean, and I liked this as a viewer and as a fan, but it's not risking anything to show you something that looks like the Death Star, to show you some scenes that look like fights from the first movie, to show you another trench run, literally another trench run, except the trench is slightly shaped differently, and the corridors on the Star Destroyer are shaped slightly differently. The Star Destroyer looks slightly different. The lightsaber, it's slightly different. Do you remember how everybody got pissed off and like freaked out? His lightsaber, it's got cross guards. Oh my God! Like, and then all those people who were making fun of like, how would you even make that work? Wouldn't you cut off your hand? I mean, like, wouldn't you cut off your own hand? So
It's for shoulder burns.
What's that?
To burn shoulders. Also unstable kyber crystals. I don't know.
Although that said, the idea of having that as like protective makes way more sense in terms of like swordplay. But I think that the original idea behind the lightsaber is that it was something more like a katana or something. But even that has a guard, because like anyway, you can just imagine in the actual fight sequence, not having any guard at all could be perilous.
Yeah, I mean, so anyway, the larger point I'm making is just that it shared so many plot elements with A New Hope. I mean, even to the thematic nature of the title, The Force Awakens, you could have easily titled A New Hope, The Force Awakens. I mean, or you could have titled this A New Hope, and it would have been an appropriate title, to where just so many things stayed the same. Now, where it gets interesting is where they diverge. And, I felt like they were trying to capture the nostalgia and the familiarity of the original trilogy enough to convince the viewers and the fans that they were interested in respecting it. And also on the other hand, to do just enough that was different and new to where they started to take steps into a much larger world, as Obi-Wan says in A New Hope. Like they're doing something different. So like I gave it a B- because like they have more leeway to do more, and they're not using it, which that's also knowing that and anticipating that The Last Jedi will do more of that, will be more interesting, will take risks, will go in directions that we've never seen Star Wars go in before. And so, this is kind of a tentative, it's a rating that's based on the supposition of something better and the suspicion that something better is coming very soon. However, I mean, if they're setting things up for something, I think they did okay. I think it was great that they waited the whole film to show you Luke. I like that Luke's very existence is kind of the pregnant pause underneath the whole film. Like you're just kind of waiting to see what's going on with him, and it drives the whole thrust of the movie. I like that unlike the books, like the Jedi Academy just failed miserably. And I'm curious to see what happened in Luke's mind and like why he did what he did. But then you wait a whole film for that though, and so this movie kind of is a prelude. It's kind of a prologue in one sense.
I think it. I agree that it feels very prologue-y, and I think it works very well at that. It's very forward-looking. It leaves a lot of threads dangling, a lot of mysteries that keep you wondering, keep you engaged. And that last scene at the end where you see Luke and he doesn't say anything and the camera's flying around in a circle and the music's going, the level of hype that's generated for the next movie in that scene is just inconceivable. It's very well done.
Yeah. Now that said, there were a lot of great points in this film. There really were. I'm being measuredly, pessimistic and getting my doubts and kind of the things that I didn't
Louis,
like.
I actually agree with your assessment. Absolutely, I agree with absolutely everything that you said. It was how I already felt before this conversation. So good job.
Then you can go home. You can go now.
I also agree. I agree that it is sort of derivative, and there's a lot of places where it could take in risks, and it didn't. I just, I guess I don't weight that as highly. I feel like that's fine, and it did a very good job. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean,
I
saw it 3 times in a week when it first came out, and like it was worth it. It was enjoyable. Like it was fun. It was an adventure. It was well made. It was J.J. Abrams, doing what he does well, what he's done in Lost, what he did in Fringe, what he did in the Star Trek films. which was to make you care about the characters, to get you really engaged, and to give you a well-paced, kind of action-y, fast-moving, basically interesting film. And you know, it was good.
I do want to comment that, in my opinion, by far the best scene of the film, with the Luke reveal, very close second, is Han's death. I thought that was really well executed.
That was also very good.
Yes, it was spectacular, and it was heart-wrenching. So the first time I definitely wept. The second and third I knew it was coming, but I watched it again, yesterday, and what happened to me was it didn't hit me. Like the death itself didn't hit me, but what did was Carrie Fisher's reaction. And I was like, oh. Yeah. And then the weeping started. So it was like brutal in terms of creating an impact that really hits home and that really is meaningful. And I still think the basic ambiguity of that scene, where it seems like, Kylo's about to let go, and maybe he was. I think maybe he was actually about to let go. And I also like this whole angle on Kylo being afraid to be seduced by the light side. That was one of the few most interesting things in the film, was somebody who kind of is totally dark side committed but feels tempted by the light side. Like, what would that be? It was weird, and it was interesting.
That is very interesting. Yeah.
Like what is there that is tempting about the light side to someone in the dark? I don't understand. But
it's there in that scene with Han. It's the light side is like, I mean, I guess it isn't love and human connection, because in the prequels it's made out to be this sort of detached, Zen Taoist thing. But I think what's going on in that scene is Kylo, he's doing this in order to create a psychological impact on himself. He's trying to traumatize himself so that he is forever in the dark by killing Han. And so he lets his love for his father sort of seep in there before he kills him, in order to make it more impactful on himself.
Oh, going on the whole theory that the more pain, the more negative emotion, the more ensconced and empowered in the dark side you are.
Yep.
And in fact, one other interesting
training. Yep.
And one other interesting comparison we made, particularly because he idolizes Vader, is that Vader was tempted by the light side, and ultimately, won out when he killed the Emperor and everything. But even before that, at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, I don't know if you recall, he tried to convince Luke to join him and that they would actually kill the Emperor. That was the plan.
Yep.
Well, that's classic Sith. I mean, who will be my person, and then eventually you will kill me. I mean, and then there will only be two. There was something really interesting though. It's this whole notion that Kylo still has to be trained. At the end of the film, Snoke says, bring Kylo to me so he can finish his training. He's very powerful, but still not completely trained. And we didn't see that in it's interesting. It really is to see Sith being trained. What is the unique Sith Lord training? And where is Snoke even coming from? Maybe just the dark side in some weird sense. Maybe these aren't even Sith. I mean, we don't know that. Just because he got a red lightsaber and a hood and a mask and a black cape doesn't mean he's a Sith Lord. He could be something new and more interesting. In fact, when I first saw the trailer for The Last Jedi, when Luke says the Jedi must end, I felt like, and I really hoped, that this was where the gray Jedi becomes sort of canon and becomes something more meaningful and interesting than it is in the extended universe, where it's just kind of like people who sort of are able to use the Force, but they're not really aligned with dark or light. No, the gray Jedi integrates both within themselves. That would be cool. That would be fun. And maybe Rey will be that. And maybe Rey will be that with the help of Kylo, which in the trailer, it's really set it up to look like she's looking for help from him to finish her own
balance
training.
to the Force.
I think that's interesting, and I think that is
literally in herself. Yeah.
That's kind of the direction that I kind of got from it too, because I don't know how much the prequels even really relate to the newer films, but you did kind of get the impression that Anakin was mismanaged from the beginning. You kind of wonder what would have happened if Qui-Gon had still been around, even though he was the one that kind of
Yeah, Qui-Gon would have made him better. Qui-Gon seemed to be more of a gray Jedi and more open to things. And I think, if Anakin, if it had been acceptable for him to be with Padme, if it had been acceptable for him to have his love for his mother, then, the downfall or the motions down that dark side path probably wouldn't have happened. I mean,
Bingo.
Actually, no, literally it would not have happened because he only
That's
went
what I
to
was
Darth
thinking
Vader
too.
for help in preventing the death of his wife because, he couldn't talk about it publicly and because the attachment wasn't something that he could deal with. He can talk about it in veiled terms to Yoda in that one scene, but he can't really, share with people, this is what I'm dealing with. There would have been a better way if he could have talked about it, if he could have been open about it, if he could have had that attachment, that love, that connection. So anyway, there's a lot more about the actual movie, though. We can follow this thread, though, if you guys want.
Well, we can go anywhere. We're just talking, I guess, about the larger canon specifically relating to the Force. But maybe in the interest of time, we could shift to, say, the other characters, like Poe and...
So let's talk about it. I loved Poe and I loved their
They're fun.
I loved Kylo. Cancel that. I really didn't love Kylo. I mean, he was kind of whiny and adolescent, and it was interesting to see when people would cower around him. I love when that guy takes off his hat, oh shit, I'm gonna die because I happen to be delivering this news to Kylo, and then he doesn't, which was nice. I liked how Poe is kind of the Han Solo analog, and I also liked, of course, Daisy Ridley, exquisitely beautiful and groundedly feminine and just as capable as any other person on the screen at anything. And she is, initially positioned as the Luke of this film. She's kind of alone, somewhat dissatisfied, stuck in a repetitive life on a desert planet, and some kind of a droid encounters her. The droid has something from, the rebellion that they need help getting back.
R2-D2 too.
Yeah, R2-D2 eventually. Yeah.
R2-D2 too.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. So, I mean, Daisy is kind of the Luke of this film, but then just when you think you've gotten a beat on that and that frame fits, then you see Finn grabbing Poe and saying, I'm here to rescue you, which, of course, was what Luke said while wearing the Stormtrooper outfit in A New Hope. And you're like, oh, so the Luke-ness kind of is distributed between Ridley and Boyega. And so you get this kind of co-participation in the whole arc of saving the galaxy with both of them throughout the film. I mean, they both participate in the lightsaber battle at the end, which was interesting and cool. They both kind of seem to be really skilled, and they work together really well. She seems to be the more Force sensitive, but it seems like he's got something going on as well. And then there seems to be a parallelism to me between Finn and Kylo Ren, which I know sounds weird, but when you think about it, what is that?
Well, in terms of this nuance, this internal struggle over whether to be good or evil, and they both have a very similar self-conflict, and I know you called it whininess, but I mean it's angst. It's a very similar kind of adolescent angst that was experienced by Anakin way back when, but it's the two of them go in opposite directions, and what's the stormtrooper enemy of Finn?
Captain Phasma.
It's either
Captain Phasma
or that guy who calls him traitor, that random guy. Traitor! I'm going to throw my weapon down and turn on my laser sword pseudo thing, fight you.
I'm
I
glad.
still remember the day on IO9 when somebody wrote an article saying that one stormtrooper who initiated that one battle was actually the secret star of the film, and we really hope we get to see him again. That was funny. I really wanted to say I liked that you went from one mask to another in the early scenes. You go from the mask that Finn is wearing to the mask that Rey is wearing, which, of course, that parallelism, their connection is what gets shown off there. I also liked how stark and kind of simple and like, I don't even know if brutalist is the right word, aesthetically speaking, but like it's just the speeder, Ray's speeder. It really looks like something Richard would have designed.
I like it.
Yeah. So I like that, Star Wars now has a black man and a woman in its center. I like that, just like Star Trek has a black woman in its center. That's really cool. I like that empathy for even droids is shown off, like as if they have some spark of life to them, or something worthy of being cared for or about. And you get this when Ray doesn't sell off BB-8 and tries to take care of it and all of that.
Yes, we've come a long way since the days when Luke Skywalker calls R2-D2 a piece of junk.
Yeah.
There's always been this weird sort of thread throughout all the Star Wars movies that the droids are the sort of oppressed underclass.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's interesting.
Ever.
Let's talk about Marxism.
No, it's something that might come up.
Because they're clearly like sentient beings.
To some extent, to some meaningful extent, yeah.
Yeah, and yet, discrimination against them is totally okay, apparently, in this universe. Like in the cantina in A New Hope, the guy says, "We don't want their kind here."
That's true. And then there's the scene when the Empire is torturing the droids. Remember that? It's actually kind of a comical one. When they're I think it's in A New Hope, where like they discover the Jawas, and they know that C-3PO and R2-D2 have passed through their hands, and so they're like, it's a really funny scene where they've got a droid upside down, and they're steaming his feet, like torture, and it's screaming.
I think that's in Return of the Jedi, but yeah. They're
is it? Okay.
It's played for laughs. This is a terrific scene.
So anyway, I love.
Has anyone stopped to think maybe that wasn't
Tyler,
torture?
Please.
Maybe it was fun.
Maybe. We don't know. We don't know their culture.
Maybe it was a kind of massage.
Yes.
Wait, kind of what?
Maybe those sounds.
Maybe
those sounds are
droid
pre-programmed.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. But it also lends an interesting question, because clearly the droids have a distinctiveness from like the actual like vehicles and the spacecraft, right? They can communicate with them, but the vehicles are not programmed with the same kind of intelligence.
Yeah, the droids are the bridge between the technology and the people. It's a very interesting sort of interface.
Yeah, there's the whole astromech thing. I liked Let Go of My Hand. I really loved Win One for Feminism, and then she takes his hand. It was really great. I think I want to know more about the Knights of Ren. Like that seems to be a really important concept. I mean, he's called Kylo Ren. Clearly, he took on his own new name, and clearly it's different. It's not identical to the Sith. Like, I think it might be something different. I think they might actually be Grey Jedi. Kylo and Rey.
You just brought up kind of an interesting point that I hadn't considered before. Is that he's Kylo Ren. He's not Darth Ren or Darth Kylo Ren or something like that, because you'd made the comment, well, maybe this is a real different incarnation of the dark side that, where the chain was fundamentally broken when Sidious died and Vader died, and then there were no more Sith, none left. Which begs the question, okay, well, where does Snoke come in? What's his origin story? But we're not given very much information at all about that.
We're not given much
Clearly
information.
Comes in a very, very large door.
I really like the way Snoke is portrayed in this. He's really very mysterious and frightening, and you definitely know he's bad. And when he says, "Bring her to me," it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they kind of skipped ahead, right? Instead of waiting a movie for the revelation of the backside of Vader's head, like they did from A New Hope to Empire, or
the Emperor himself, who doesn't show up until Empire. The Emperor. Yeah, you don't have the big bad show up until Empire, and you're kind of left thinking that Darth Vader is kind of like the top of the heap with the bad guys, and now you start this movie with the bad guy, with the main bad guy. I don't even know. It's curious to see how General Hux and Kylo are supposed to relate, because it seems like General Hux is kind of the leader of all of the First Order or something, but he's also equivalent to Kylo, and
they're kind of competing to win Snoke's
Well,
affection.
that goes straight back to A New Hope, though, because the same thing was the case with Vader. Everybody was afraid of him, but like I believe it was Grand Moff Tarkin who was actually like the direct military commander, and they had some scenes like the choking scene at the Empire's coffee break, you know. So there's precedent for that.
I think in A New Hope, Vader is Tarkin's direct report.
Yeah, I think I think so too. Yeah.
But yeah, and then Force Awakens, I guess Snoke has a two in the box management style.
Mhm.
Set two people on the same task and they compete to do it.
That's really curious.
There's
a specific management style.
There's a tangent that I could go off on that was probably not relevant, but I'll just make a one sentence.
I'm just kidding.
A one sentence insinuation. There are fan theories on the internet that suspect that Snoke may actually be Darth Plagueis, who in episode 3 we have the conversation in the concert hall with the Emperor and Anakin, and he tells him the story of Darth Plagueis and that Plagueis had become
one sentence.
Plagueis had become so powerful with the Force that he had gained power over death and was immortal. And the implication is that Plagueis was Sidious's master, and so perhaps Sidious thought that he killed Plagueis, but Plagueis reincarnated in like another body or something, and that's where Snoke came from. I'm done.
Snoke certainly looks like he's pretty beaten up. It looks like he could be a bit of a zombie.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Which is an interesting parallel with the idea of Force ghosts, which is, I guess, the light side version of coming back from the dead. It's a bit more horrific on the dark side if this is how it works.
Yeah, you get immortal, but your body destroys itself over time. Gets more and more screwed up.
So it's interesting. I'm sure that we will learn much more about Snoke in the upcoming film. We actually saw him in color in the trailer.
Yeah, I like, to return to this film, the plot was fun for what it was. The holograms at the end were really super high quality. I liked that, like the holographic map, because it's a far cry from what we got in A New Hope originally. The ending, I agree, was just so well done. There were some other things like the wouldn't be nice to you from Han to Rey. I really liked that. I was like, she's like, I'm thinking of hiring you, but I wouldn't be nice to you. He's just so grumpy. I mean, I don't remember Han being that grumpy. He was kind of cheerful and playful in the original.
I think it's a great character development. It made so much sense, particularly after what was presumably after a bitter separation from Leia.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the fact that their son is with basically the reincarnation of the Empire,
Yeah.
And so guess what? Guess what he's doing? He's right back where he started as a smuggler, So it's like, okay, well, what's the course of my life? Where have I been and what have I done? Oh, yeah, I flew into the Death Star and blew it up. And now I'm smuggling these critters and, like, getting stopped by gangsters. Like, he and Chewie just went right back to what they were doing before, which is probably not the lifestyle. Like, I doubt that Leia was suddenly, like, in the smuggling business with him. I doubt it was a family enterprise.
No, I think he went back to it because she left him. Or because
no, I think you're exactly right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that there was a period of time when I'm sure, with his medals and all this stuff. Actually, he was a general, right? He was General Solo.
Yep.
In return.
So why exactly did the rebellion end up going into obscurity like this? And what is the First Order like? How much power do they have? The whole history and political situation is very unclear, and it seems like its real goal is just to reset it to basically what it was in A New Hope.
You're right, and I think that's left to the viewer's imagination. I'm not sure that there's enough internal evidence to really even comment on it. I thought that was strange too. Like, where do you get the resources? Not only to build a Death Star, but to build something that can destroy an actual solar system.
Something much bigger, something that can destroy multiple planets at once. Yeah, that can consume the whole power of a sun. They do some of the work to explain it in the books that they've come out with since the movie, the new expanded universe.
But, if the movie has to rely on outside material, that's not good.
Yeah, it's not.
I just feel like, the Resistance, they call themselves the Resistance, but the First Order isn't the government. The First Order is just another group that's trying to take over. It's like Pepsi doesn't call itself the Resistance because they're competing with Coke.
It's the resistance, which is basically, synonymous for the rebels. Whip out your thesaurus and I don't know.
But they're not rebelling against anything. The First Order is not in charge. They're just some guys that the resistance doesn't like.
So perhaps the implication is simply that after the fall of the Empire, which had been in power for so many years and had provided the entire social backdrop and financial structure of society, suddenly that's gone, and now we have a huge power vacuum. And and the rebels weren't equipped to necessarily, deal with governmental issues, because we don't really know what we don't even know if Coruscant was actually still the capital of the Empire. I don't know. We don't know.
It looks like
there's the Republic,
Coruscant, by the way,
which was supposedly in charge, but then they got destroyed, or maybe a fraction of them got destroyed. Yeah.
Because remember, in A New Hope, there's the line that he dissolves the Senate in A New Hope. So who knows what happened to all the bureaucrats?
Yeah, I guess they were all unemployed and looking for a big organization to look for, and then Snoke came along.
Can you imagine the job interview? Well, I worked for the Empire, so I should be okay, right? Yeah.
They felt pointless in life if they weren't taking orders from someone in a really, really scary black robe who looks evil.
Yeah.
Like, who would choose to work for Snoke?
That guy looks terrible.
Swipe left on Tinder.
So yeah, I like.
Sorry, that was a weird statement. Sorry.
No, it was inappropriate. 2017. Maz was cool. Maz I really liked.
That was interesting. So Lewis, I would like to hear your words on Rey's vision at Maz's.
I thought it was great. I thought it was clearly a sign that there's some sort of karmic record or Akashic record thing going on with the lightsaber itself, and it was able to be accessed by Rey because the Force is awakening in her, and she's supposed to be doing the Jedi stuff, and that was her cue call. I was like, hey, welcome. You gotta join us here on the light side of the Force.
It was also very well done in terms of creating this sense of wonder and a greater universe and that kind of thing. I like that scene.
Very much so. Not to mention, I actually and I'm someone who is often critical of the overuse of CGI, because I think that CGI should look better in 2017 than it does. But anyway, but I really liked the character design of Maz with the the sunken eyes and the giant goggles. I felt like that was
Even in defense of The Force Awakens, it was actually made before 2015. So the CGI, it was probably much better for 2015 than
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just in general. I feel like 10 years ago we should have had better CGI, considering what was being produced even in the 90s. There are a lot of things in the 90s that still hold up. So anyway, that's just my personal criticism. I have a filmmaker friend who shares this opinion, but it's less about CGI. I don't have a problem with CGI, but just tasteful use and considerate design, to where you don't feel like you're watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's live action characters and cartoons alongside of each other. That's what I mean.
I didn't feel like she was absurd. I felt like she was well done.
No. That's what I'm saying. She was well done. I'm just saying that, for instance, that was a huge criticism of the Star Wars prequels, was overuse and overdependence on CGI unnecessarily, where it's let's just have 1 million lightsabers, Anyway, that's
always better when you add 4.
Well, when you care about why they're swinging the lightsabers, you can't care about 30 Jedi swinging lightsabers, about each individual one. Arguably, one of the greatest lightsaber fights of all time is Obi-Wan versus Vader in A New Hope. And it's really simple. There's no, it's the dialogue and the feeling and the emotion and the consideration of each before he swings, it's palpable and powerful, So anyway, I'm sure I'm nitpicking, but Just my opinion.
No. This is good. Like, and there was a little bit of a return to that with this lightsaber battle at the end, because
that's what I thought too.
Simpler. It was more about the characters, and it was, interesting. I mean, it was kind of Deus Ex Machina right there at the end, because
Ray just forgot about the Force. Then she remembered, oh yeah, I could push him.
Well, that, and then also the way that they got separated by the planet being destroyed. Like, I could swear she was not that far away from him. Like, and then suddenly she was, because there's this trench. Maybe it was like a continental shelf moving or something. But
yeah, it's kind of a plot device, but effective.
Maybe. I liked how you get this curved camera angle on Kylo when he shows up at Maz's. I thought it worked really well to make him look evil. Like, the camera was kind of coming at him from an askew angle, and that was cool. I liked, this was maybe one of my favorite scenes in the movie, when Finn and Poe are both fighting in the same frame, but Finn is fighting on the ground and Poe is fighting in the air, and you see, TIE fighter after TIE fighter get destroyed, and Finn looks up and is like, wow, what a pilot. And like their connection is just sweet. It's just really, I love it.
What's funny is that he has no idea that's Poe.
Yeah, of course, exactly. That's also interesting.
Except through the Force. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? Because think about this. Leia was Force sensitive as well. She had no training, but she didn't have Obi-Wan like Luke did, but she had ESP basically. She knew across the galaxy, and that she could feel disturbances in the Force in the same way that Yoda could.
Yeah, he feels the death of Han as well. So
because just the fact that Finn was even able to fight with a lightsaber that way, right? I don't know.
Yeah, they were both able to. So that's the mysterious thing. They were both able to just pick it up and fight with a decent amount of skill. And then she intuited that she was able to do Jedi mind tricks. Maybe she could tell from Kylo that there was something that she was capable of after he displayed what was possible. Maybe that was what was going on.
I got the impression that she had heard about Jedi mind tricks as a legend, and she was like, oh, now I can try this.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's all true, Han says. So she's like, oh, okay, let me rethink these things.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? Because that's kind of the central awesomeness of being a Jedi is once your mind is liberated, anything becomes possible. And suddenly strange things that you thought weren't real were hogwash, made up by New Age spiritualists just to entertain people and to sell shitty books. Wait, what? All of this works and is possible and people are doing it constantly? I'm going to get in on that, which was actually kind of the story of my life in 2013. Started off with, this is all crap. Anyway.
And Luke has that moment, too, when in A New Hope. Remember? When it's they're looking for Ben Kenobi, right? He doesn't know because he's in hiding as Ben Kenobi, not Obi-Wan Kenobi. And, there's discussion of, legends of the Force and all that there, too. Yeah. So I think it's just a parallel, And that perhaps as well, because I think it's going to happen just because, social forces outside of the movies really, really want it to happen. There's the Finn and Poe bromance thing that's going on that probably is going to become more than just a bromance. So those early scenes when you're kind of tricked into thinking that there could be a love interest or something like that between Rey and Finn. But I think it's a bait and switch because it's kind of like Luke and Leia who made out, but Leia actually was going to end up with Han.
Yeah. I still think it would be interesting for something to develop between Finn and Rey. I still think something's possible. I think they would definitely go through friendship first, and that's definitely where they're at now. But
I would be extremely surprised, and because
for sure.
In terms of social media and whatnot, and basically people want to see gay characters in Star Wars, because of the diversity factor, and So I think, one could argue that partially market forces might push that to happen more strongly. Yeah.
The invisible hand of the market pulling everything towards LGBT. Yep.
Well, the youngins call that shipping, when you see two characters on screen or something and you want them to get together, so you ship them, and you make you make gifts of that moment. When
class? How do you ship them?
I don't know the etymology of the term. Maybe Richard does.
I thought it was short for relationship.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess that must be exactly where it comes from. That makes perfect sense.
Well, then my whole train of thought are valid. That's that. So here's two things. The First Order must not be too smart, because they really didn't look very closely, or we've got no real evidence that they scanned very closely for droids before they just started blowing up Maz's place. They knew from their informant that, yes, the droid is here somewhere, but they didn't know exactly where it was. So does it really make sense to start blowing the place up? I don't think so. And then the Kylo reveal.
Maybe droids come with black boxes now. I don't know.
Maybe. And then the other thing, the Kylo reveal was a little bit too soon. I felt like you should have left him behind the mask a little bit longer. Even if it's just until the next film. We waited until, and that was Richard leaving. He's got to go. We waited until Empire we waited until Return of the Jedi to see Vader. We could have waited at least a movie to see Kylo. But then again, I guess for the whole he's Han's son aspect to play, he's got to be a human, and a human character just like us, and you got to humanize him pretty quickly. So anyway, that was.
But because I think to be honest, I felt like part of that was the dramatic benefit of bringing his acting into play, to see the facial expressions and whatnot. And I think that it's also different because Vader was at a very different part in his life at the time that we saw him. Even from A New Hope, he was much older. So the idea is that this is like a young, inexperienced aspirant to the dark side, and we get to see the human side to that and the internal struggle more if we can see his face and it's not just a mask.
Yeah, it becomes more interesting from a character perspective. That makes sense. Well, yeah, that finishes off pretty much everything I had to say about this. Tyler, we really haven't heard much from you so far this episode. What were your thoughts on the whole thing? And then I know you got to go pretty soon, so if there's anything you wanted to talk about, you got the floor.
All right, I mostly had jokes, but they're gone now. I wanted to give this film a B, as in billions, as in it grossed over $2 billion. So it did something right fiscally. But as far as, I agree with that. J.J. Abrams does characters well, and this film is no exception. I appreciated every performance all around. God, what is there to say you guys haven't already articulated in a clear and concise way? I hope The Last Jedi bucks expectations and delivers an experience that we haven't yet had from a Star Wars film.
And makes bucks.
I agree. The what?
And makes bucks. I really like Tyler's joke. That's my homage to Tyler's joke. Mine's not as good.
It has to make money. Otherwise, Disney owns pretty much everything now with that recent Fox deal. So
yeah, they bought Fox. Yeah.
So they need to make the money back.
Honestly, I don't think they really need the money. This could fail. Well, this is not going to fail. This movie is going to do really well, but
it's too big to fail.
Maybe, I don't know.
So one other thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Real quick. They made Solo, which has not been advertised really at all, and it's coming out in May. And then Episode 9 is planned after that, and then they've got a new trilogy. So, I'm pretty sure they're not going to run out of Star Wars movies or money anytime soon.
No, fatigue won't set in for a while.
I think that you're right. And I also think that just on this podcast, we should also basically raise a glass to Carrie Fisher and her contribution to the canon and everything like that. This will be the last time.
I will not raise a glass. I will applaud her. I will take a moment of silence for her, but I will not raise a glass. Even metaphorically.
Okay,
I will
but
consume almonds.
that's fine. I'm trying to honor Carrie Fisher, okay,
Yeah.
which is a really
No,
important part of all this. And this will be her last performance that we'll have the pleasure of being able to see. So, yeah.
Until they
Rest in
resurrect
peace.
her, like they do with. Well, they actually already did resurrect her. She's in Rogue One.
Yeah, but they're not going to use her in
CGI
episode
Fisher.
9.
That's what I call her.
Well, all they did was superimpose her visage over another actress.
Yeah. And that also chronologically makes sense because, it was obviously a prequel. But she is in this new movie, and I don't know this for a fact because I have not seen the movie yet, but most likely her starship will blow up. So, or they'll find some other way to, write her out that's hopefully meaningful and true to the character. And honestly, kind of would add another side to Kylo, and just both of his parents,
I don't think it would be interesting for him to kill both of his parents. I think he's
No, he's not. No, she passed away while they were filming, so she didn't get to complete all of her scenes. So I'm saying that how else can you do it? I mean, I guess I don't know, a facial overlay, but I don't know. It just seems weird. Maybe so.
Well, the trailer makes it seem like Kylo's going to kill her. Kylo's going to blow up the ship that she's on, and then to let go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or one of the trailers.
Yeah,
anyway.
that sounds likely. Hey, how you doing, man? And I feel like that would be a fitting and respectful way to come full circle with it. So I just wanted to, we can't talk about this movie without talking about her a little bit. So yeah.
Well, Tyler, what's your final thoughts on this?
Has less to do with the film than the upcoming one. No spoilers, but I wonder what pork meat tastes like.
Pork?
Yeah, they have a new critter. Yeah.
If you cooked one and turned it into a sandwich, what would it taste like?
Oh.
It would probably taste like chicken.
Universal standard.
On that note.
Boring.
On that note, gonna let this one go. Well, all right. A lot of fun. Good film. Good to have you guys on. Good to have Richard on, even though he's gone already. Yeah, we're looking forward to next week where we will be talking about The Last Jedi, exactly 1 week after everyone else did. So,
all right.
Right.
Thank you guys. Have a great night.
May the Force be with you.
Care. All that.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force balance you, light and dark.
Yes.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Lewis.
Who was it? The Narn or the Centauri?
Yes.
All right. That's it. And good night, everybody.
Good night.